Hey everybody, welcome back to Black Cat Forge. Hoping you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in. We're continuing our lessons on tapering. This time it's going to be with a round stock. When we're done, this will be our end product, is an S hook. You know, it's kind of like a shower hook type deal. Very good hook to know how to make. Just in case you're interested, this is quarter stock. This is 7 inches. What we're going to be using today, again, just so it's easier to see on the camera, is 5/16 round. And I've made it 8 inches just to make it a little easier to see what we're doing. So the first thing is, when we talk about this, is what's the difference between doing round stock and square stock? The only difference is you want to square your ends up before you do anything. After you square them, then you can draw them out to a taper. You can round the point if you want to, and you can make your finial. That's the only difference between doing round stock versus square stock. So let's just talk about the steps that we're going to use today. So, like I said, we're going to start with our round stock. We're going to square the ends. We're then going to draw the ends out to a taper, just like we've done with the square stock. We're going to round those ends. Then when we make our finials, one finial will be pointing down, the other finial will be pointing up. Now, this is something, the next step here is something that I have figured out to make it easier for my students to understand how to make an S hook, because most new students will make an S hook that looks something like this. While technically it is an S hook, it's not what we're shooting for. This is what we're aiming for, a nice symmetrical S, and it's as much the same as it is on the top as it is on the bottom. And also you have a finial on the top and a finial on the bottom on the S. So what I do is, after I get my finials made, and they both look fairly similar, is I will find the center point of my steel and I will put a punch mark on it. Then I will measure from this punch mark to here, find my center, put a punch mark, same thing here, put a punch mark. Why do I do that? It gives me a reference point of where to work. So after you get this part hot and you quench your finial, you know from that spot, that's where you place it on the anvil horn to start your bend. And you're going to bend it all the way back to the center point. Vice versa, same thing here. When you're done, what your end results will be a rather similar looking S hook on top and bottom. So before we go to the forge and get the forge heated up and get the steel in there, please remember to hit like and subscribe. It helps us. It helps this channel stay motivated, keep us going to keep making these videos for you. So let's get the steel hot and let's go to the anvil. Okay, so we're going to start with our round stock. We're just going to lay it flat. We're going to turn it 9 degrees. Turn it 90. And there you can see we now have that end squared. That's all we have to do. So we're going to heat this back up and then do the tapering. So now that we have it square, we're just going to do just like we've done with everything else. We're going to raise it up, put it at the edge of the anvil. And just keep working it till we have a point. We're just going to continue to work this. And just like our square stock, we now have it out to a point. So we're going to put it on the diamond. And then start just tapping it till we get it round again. Back to the anvil. So we're now going to finish rounding it. And when we do this, we want to make sure that we taper this out to a long point. One thing to think about, in all the videos so far, we've only been doing finials one way. Don't think that is the only type of finial you can have. When we do our next project, I'm going to just purposely make a different type of finial. All the finial is it is just a nice ending, so your hook or whatever piece of work you have on doesn't just come to an abrupt halt. So as you can see right there, it's drawing out real good. We're going to continue drawing it out. It's just about to where I want it. I probably want to give it at least one more go around to get it drawn out to the exact point that I want. And back to the anvil. One thing with the round stock is you round it. You really want to work on your rounding just to make sure that it blends into the original stock. Okay, so there we have one end ready for a finial. I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side. And when I have it ready, we will come back to the video, work on the finials, and then do the S-hook. Okay, so I've got both sides pretty well equally drawn out, and we're going to make our finials. So I'm going to show something different. We've talked about, doing the finials where you bring it over the edge and you bring your hammer and you start your bend and you bring it over. That is one way to make a finial. There's more than one way to do most things in a blacksmithing shop. A lot of it is we should learn all the different techniques, but then pick the technique that it works the best for you. What I've showed you on my other videos is a traditional way of making a finial. I am now going to show you with rounding pliers how to do the same thing. So when we come back to the anvil, we're going to make our first finial. So the steel's almost ready to come out. What I want to talk about is on making the finial. I'm going to be using scrolling pliers. These are something that I bought custom, but basically you just grab your steel and you just roll it in there. It might take a couple of heats because it's something you take your time on doing. If you don't have scrolling pliers, you can just go to Harbor Freight and buy these. They're not as round, and you got to be careful with the grooves in there not to grab it too hard to leave an impression in the steel. But either work, but we're just going to use the scrolling tongs. So here we are. We've got our steel. I'm going to start the edge, and just like everything else, I'm just going to start the curve. I just want to get the metal going. I want to take this, and I'm just going to slowly start bringing up and over till I start feeling resistance. That's my stopping point. I'm going to come back and heat that up and finish it off. Okay, so we've got it hot. We're just going to pick up where we left off. Just taking our time, working our bend. And what we're going to do for that last little bit right there, just give it a little love tap with the hammer. And there is our first finial. So our next finial is going to be on the opposite side. So let's get that one done. Okay, while the steel is getting hot, one thing I just want to talk about is, remember I told you you're going to have one finial on the bottom, one finial on the top. If for some reason or another they're not exactly lined up, it's okay. Do not panic. You remember on the square bar, when we twisted it, we got this nice spiral pattern because it's square bar. I was taught a trick that with round bar, you can twist round bar all you want and you'll never get those striations on there because it's round bar. So if your top finial and your bottom finials don't line up exactly, do not panic. You can go to the vise and you can, as long as it's hot, you can twist them into alignment and no one will ever know. So let's go finish this second finial. So I have my old finial, or the one we just made, pointing up. So we want this one to be pointing up as well. We're pointing in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to brush it down to start to curl. We're just going to take our time and get it to bend. And we lost our heat, so we're going to warm it up again real quick. Okay. So we're back. We're just going to continue our bends. Get them all nice and neat. Get them just about there. Give them a little love tap with the hammer. And if you can see, we have our finials made. This one here is a little too small compared to this one. So we're going to fix that. I'm going to heat this up. I'm going to open it back up and we're going to rebend it one more time. Okay, so I've straightened out that finial. I'm heating up the steel to make it again. The biggest lesson from the S-hook, besides learning how to square and then taper around steel, is making sure that you can make your work look as symmetrical as possible. A lot of blacksmithing is what I call the fiddly work, in that you've got to make your stuff fairly exacting. It's handmade, so you'll never be 100%.
Okay, so my wireless mic decided to die at the worst possible moment. What I was trying to say was you're never going to make everything 100% accurate when you're trying to make things similar. You just want to make them as close as possible. So if you just watch, I'm taking my time on this one, and when I'm done, my finials now are much more similar. I'll probably have to do just a little bit of cleanup, and then we will do our marking of where we're going to do our bends, and then we'll finish out with our S-hook.
Okay, so I've let this cool. This is what we have so far. We need to do a couple of things before we continue on with the S-hook. If you can, I don't know if you can tell with the camera or not, but this one and this one are not in alignment. If I hold my finger up here, that'll show you with this finial pointing down, this finial is pointing this way. We've also got just a couple of little waves in here. So what we want to do is, before we do anything else, is I wanted to straighten this up, just a few little taps on the anvil, and then I'm going to lock this finial into the vise, and I'm just going to give it a twist, and everything will be back in plane. And remember what I said earlier, is the nice thing about round stock is you can manipulate it, twist it, and you won't get the striations on it like you do with square bar. So nobody will ever know that you had to make an adjustment. But I want to make these adjustments first before we continue on doing the S-hook. Just like anything else in the blacksmith shop, you want to make sure that your work is as correct as possible before you move on to the next step, because that will keep you from having to make bigger corrections later on. So let's put this back in the forge, and we'll come back to the anvil when it is hot. Okay, so we've got this hot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place this in with the finial pointing down. I'm just going to take a pair of pliers. And I'm now going to bend it so now my finials are in alignment. So if we look at it now, our finials are pretty much in alignment, which is good. Anything left, we can straighten up at the end. And just want to give a couple little bends here in the anvil. A lot of times if something just isn't really true, instead of getting it super, super hot and taking it to the anvil and beating it with the hammer, you can run it through your vise, just give it a good little squeeze. And that looks pretty straight. I'm happy with that. So we're going to move on to our next step, and that is marking where I want to do my bends. So we'll move back to the anvil, and we'll do that in just a second. Okay, so what I've done is after I cooled this, I went ahead and measured. I found roughly where center was, and I'm not sure if you can see this with the lighting the way it is, but I used a Sharpie just to make a dot. And then after I found half of this side and put a dot here. Those are my reference points for where I want to bend my S-hook. So the one thing is right now, when I put this in the fire, the Sharpie will go away. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to take my center punch, and I'm just going to put a little dot in here, and all it's going to be is it's just going to be my reference point that I know where to place my bends. Now, after you get a little bit more experience with making S-hooks and such, you'll begin to develop an eye for where things go. But for right now, just think of it as a reference tool that will help you find where your mark is, because it's a lot easier to see that little divot you put in once it's hot. Now, like I said, all it is it's a reference point. So what we're going to do is once we get this hot again, we're just going to heat up this side. We're just going to heat up this side. We're going to quench our finial. We're going to come over the horn with the finial up, and we're going to, and there's my center mark, we're going to start bending it. And we're going to bend it all the way back to roughly about where center is. And then we'll do the same thing, and we should have a very rough S shape at that point, and then we'll do some straightening up and we'll have a finished hook. So just remember to always have your little quench can here for your finials. So we're going to put this back in the fire, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so I've got everything good and hot. I'm just going to quench my finial end. I'm going to find my mark, and I'm just going to start bending it over the horn. And if you notice, I'm working my steel around the horn as I bend it. And that's not too bad. There's my center mark, and it's fairly lined up. We'll make some adjustments later. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing on this side, and we'll see where we wind up. Got my other side good and hot. Again, I'm just going to quench my finial. I'm going to put it over the horn about where my mark is. And again, I'm working the steel down. And I'm going to probably need to do one more little heat on there before I'm happy with it, just so you see where we are. So I'm going to give it one more heat and work this down a little bit more. Okay, so I've got it hot again. Just going to quench my finial, put it back over the horn. So I've got this side the way I want it. I want to work on this side just a little bit more. I kind of like the way this looks, so I just want to bend this end down. All right, so we're going to finish this up. We're just going to quench our finial again. And we're just going to tighten up this part of the hook just a little bit. And there you have it. There we have an S hook. So it all looks pretty good. It's all fairly even. Our finials are good. It's all in plane. If it did need a little bit of fixing, you can just lay it here on your anvil and just give it a couple little taps to square it up. So there is your S hook. And we'll be right back and we'll have our final comments and this video will be done. So congratulations. You have now made your second hook. You have made the S hook. Just remember, when you make hooks, especially if you're going to be making them for someone, you may change your design a little bit just to fit their needs. You know, if I was going to do something with a larger rod or something, I would probably open this up a little bit more. But for just a standard everyday S hook that's going to hold things, this is my go-to design. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It was fun for me to make. The next video we make is our last hook in the series for this learning blacksmithing. That will be the spade hook. That was probably the most challenging hook that I had to learn to make. But once I learned it, I learned a lot of practices that go into other things that you will be making in blacksmithing. So stay tuned for that one. That one will be coming out soon. If you enjoyed this, please click like and subscribe. It just helps me. It gives me motivation to keep doing these videos. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I will answer all questions. So thank you for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.